What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Better Sports Network DFS MLB Playbook Preview Show. 12 games to talk about so we could destroy tonight's DFS MLB slate. My name is Justin Fensterman, along with James Grande. What's going on, Grande? It's been a while since we've streamed together.
It has been a while. Back and better than ever, though.
Literally.
Yes, back, literally. And it's an interesting slate. There's some weather concerns on tonight's slate. There's some Coors Field slate that, fortunately doesn't have any hail like it did yesterday. So there's a lot of interesting dynamics of the slate. There's a lot of good pitching at the up front, like up top. There's some value arms. This slate really has a little bit of everything and nothing to bring in a little bit of everything like Grande and Fensty here to end the work week here.
That's what we do. Let's go over some of the higher totals very quickly and talk about some of the lefties on the hill for this 12-game slate here, because you're looking at the highest total on the board, obviously, in Coors Field, Tigers and Rockies at 11. Austin Gomber on the hill as a lefty. So that's one of the lefty matchups that we have tonight. Also at 10, total 10 here on DraftKings Sportsbook, the Marlins and the Braves. And then at 9, which is 9-run total here for James Paxton, who is also lefty in that Red Sox Blue Jays matchup. A lot of our later games, James, have lefties on the hill. We've got 6 lefty pitchers tonight, man.
Yeah, and they're all in the big game environments, and obviously every slate that has Coors in it is really where you start. It's like who's in Coors, who's on the mound in Coors, and Austin Gomber has been a gas can pretty much with the exclusion of like 2 starts, and it was unfortunate because like I stacked against him in Boston, and then I doubled down and stacked against him against the Angels. And he did well in both those starts, so my bank account didn't do well afterwards. But yeah, I mean, should be good game environments. I'm always, and we'll get into like obviously this during the player breakdown a little bit more, but I'm always a little, I don't know if fatigued is the right word, but like slate after slate, we play Coors, and then a new team comes in, and I'm always just a little cautious on like the first game in Coors, I guess, where it just never seemed like the Angels scored 25 runs in Coors just a few slates ago, but it was like the second game of their series. Last night, the Dodgers went for 11 runs. The slate before that, 8 runs, 5 on the night game 1 of that Coors Field series. Like, we have the Detroit Tigers in Coors tonight, Fancy, and that's always a little, I mean, Detroit has been, if not the worst offense in baseball, the second worst offense in baseball for a large part of this year. So it's always a little interesting. And again, we'll get into the player breakdown and position breakdown because I'm going to mention all these Tigers, and then I'm going to sit here and say, oh, well, maybe tread lightly. Shout out Walter White. I just wanted to give my thoughts on initially before we dive in position by position. It is a little tread lightly for me because it is Coors, yes, but 11 is one of the lower totals we've seen in Coors all year. Like this whole Dodgers series, we saw 12 runs implied, and it is the Tigers going into Coors. Like they are not a great team by any stretch. So, that's my little intro ensemble, my little intro spiel as we head into the player breakdown.
Some of the weather issues that you outlined earlier, by the way, because I live about 35 to 40, up to 45 minutes away from Camden Yards. And the rain at Camden Yards over the last week has been crazy, man, because
Right.
The rain would come quickly over here where I'm at, but then all of a sudden goes north, and it's like the cloud literally stays above Camden Yards. So it was raining by me about 35, 40 minutes down the road, about, I want to say, an hour ago, but now it's subsided since. And then some of the other, because I was looking up some of the other weather issues. I mean, weather issues in Kansas City, weather issues in Colorado, weather issues in St. Louis as well. The St. Louis one, though, I don't think the rain will destroy at least the first half of the game, maybe the second half of the game, that's when all of a sudden the humidity starts to rise. So we can't really play this scared, but I'm not seeing of these major weather issues anything that should completely wipe out the game. But I do see maybe half the game getting rained on. And for some of these other later starting games, I see the second half from what I've looked on the weather radar.
Yeah, I would say per Kevin Roth of Roto Grinders, who does the extended weather report every day, he does seem a little concerned for that Yankees Cardinals game, and that's obviously concerning. I like the Yankees tonight. I'll be the first to admit it, and it's not. I'll put the bias aside. I do think this is a pretty good spot for them. Um, but like, if we're only going to get 5 innings, it's really tough to really have a ton of interest in like cash games. And if you're only playing a single entry tournament, like it's tougher to lane is going to be persistent in St. Louis. Because if you're only getting 5 innings, Fancy, like you're just automatically at a disadvantage, like just naturally. I mean, every other DFS player has 4 more innings for a stack or a player of a position that you may use. Even my PrizePicks video, I used Anthony Volpe in my PrizePicks video, so I'm a little scared of that, but largely I agree. In other spots, it doesn't seem too worrisome.
Go to fantasyalarm.com. By the way, Justin Vreeland has the DFS MLB playbook up. It will get updated. So make sure you go there to check out who he's liking tonight, because there are definitely some names, especially on the pitching side, that we have to get to. And what's awesome about this time of the year, James, as well, with our fantasy football draft guide live right now, and you see it on the little ticker below on how you could get access to it, you can then try us out for a week as well and see if you like us. Try us on for size to see if you love what you're getting at Fantasy Alarm, and then become a full-time subscriber there. We just offer so much, James. You and I, we take care in multiple sports for the site, coverage of all sports. It's a great time. All of us, we're all hungry to win, but we're even hungrier to help all of you win out there, man. So what do you think? Should we start with the pitching for tonight?
Yeah, let's hop into some starting pitching for the night.
Yep. So we'll go over we'll go position by position, and then towards the end, as we always do on this show, we'll create a lineup that we like tonight. The last time I was on this show, I thought I had a very solid lineup. I actually went in to one of my most expensive double ups that I played. Like, for me, that's what's most expensive, 50? No, $10. I get it. I'm cheap. It's okay. All right. We work in this industry. At the same time, my pitching just completely got destroyed. It was Gavin Williams' first start. He had a good matchup.
Yeah.
He got destroyed. And then
Oakland.
you know
the
what?
Oakland matchup.
Castillo against your Yankees destroyed me that night too. So John and I went 0-4 when it came to pitching when we were on last week, man. But you look at the top of the price charts here, and Shane McClanahan is there, and Paxton as well. Paxton, by the way, and I updated this on the injury report on fantasyalarm.com. Paxton had been dealing with a little bit of a knee issue going back to last week, but he's fine, good to go. So when it comes to these two guys, is this the direction that we should look to go with one of our two pitchers here, being that it is a 12-game slate? Or do you think maybe we could go down a little bit? Is that getting too dirty?
Yeah, I mean, both guys actually dealing with injuries, right? McClanahan had the back that he left his last start, and they gave him a full week off. And now Paxton with the knee that he left a little early, and he said he actually had that knee injury the start prior that he pitched through. So they've both been dealing with a little bit of ailment right now. I mean, I think McClanahan's going to be pretty popular tonight. I think a lot of people are going to get there. He is an elite pitcher. He is still the Cy Young favorite in the American League, despite he wasn't looking great in that Kansas City start even before the back. But what was it because of the back? Probably. It's hard to ignore him. It's hard to ignore him against Seattle, a team that's been bottom 10 in pretty much every statistical category against lefties and righties alike. So I definitely lean McClanahan. I have been James Paxton's number one fan this year, and John can attest to this. I have told John since the start of the year, like, the guy is super talented. He's just never healthy. And the health has been James Paxton's number one issue his entire career. And he's definitely made me look smarter than I actually am, because he has pitched extremely well outside of the Chicago start and outside of a start earlier in the year against the Angels. The strikeouts have been on full display for him. think that this is a spot though that I'm not personally getting to. You can if you want to in tournaments. I think he'll be very low owned when you're looking at some ownership. Like McClanahan is 20x the ownership percentage that Paxton is. So if you wanted to gain some tournament leverage and go to Paxton, fine. I just think, like you said, can we go down and get a little dirtier? I do. I think that's more of the approach that I am personally taking.
Yeah, by the way, let us know what you're feeling when it comes to players for tonight's slate here. You can always comment. We'll read your comments. For instance, Mark saying Kremer, favorite pitcher, makes him want to barf at this point. But that's the thing, man. I mean, you look at who's on the hill as a whole, you don't have a lot of star-studded names tonight. So it's going to be a lot of barf-worthy pitching. And for Mark, with what he's saying about Kremer, yeah, it's even a bigger problem here because we don't know what the weather's going to be like. I could tell you it's sunny right by me, but there's a storm cloud above Camden Yards. So Kremer being 8,100 tonight going up against the Twins.
Yeah, first off, I will say his profile picture, this might be Kevin Gossman in disguise. I'm not sure if we've ever seen Kevin Gossman and Dean Kremer in a room together. Like, I don't know. Like if I had the Spider-Man meme present, I would bring that up on screen right now, or a picture of Kevin Gossman. I would also bring that up because I think they look exactly alike. Look, Milwaukee is an offense that has really struggled large part of this season, especially lately. They have a high strikeout rate against both handednesses, 25.1% strikeout rate against right-handed pitching on the year is the fourth highest in the league. And I will grant that Dean Kremer has been missing bats at a decent clip of late. 5 or more strikeouts in 7 consecutive starts. We've seen 20 fantasy point upside over that span 3 times. So, like, yeah, it's a good pitching environment in Baltimore, much better than it used to be since they moved the walls back. So, yeah, I mean, I think Dean Kremer is a decent option. Now, Mark is saying, and this is classic Mark. I mean, Mark is a regular here, and Mark is always on Orioles pitchers for one reason or another. I mean, for crying out loud, the guy lives in Boston. You'd think he's an Orioles fan out there. I like some pitchers above him more, but I can't discount that Dean Kremer is firmly in play on this slate. He is. It's scary. You need to hold, like, just set it. Don't look at your lineup the rest of the night because it might go poorly. But Milwaukee has been
Minnesota.
I've been saying Milwaukee this whole time.
You only said it once. If you said it twice, I was going to correct you. Once I'll make like it didn't happen, but then I was going to wait for the second time.
Minnesota, yes, strikeout against every handedness. I'm perfectly fine getting to Dean Kremer. Oh, what a great start here, James. Good start. Way to go.
Of course. What about now? Let's talk about a pitcher who is very hard to trust, kind of like your box of chocolates pitcher at this point. You don't know what you're going to get from Jose Barrios on a given night anymore, man. I mean, it's bad one night, it's good one night. And tonight with this AL East showdown here going up against Boston, I mean, you look to see what happened the last time he faced Boston here. He gave up a decent amount of production when it came to the Boston start. This was back in May, 5 earned runs here. But if you look at him, over the last number of starts here, you have the 5 earned runs against Miami, but then between that, around that vicinity, the 2 earned runs versus Oakland, 0 versus Baltimore, 2 versus Houston, 1 versus the Mets. Who cares? They suck. But it's different than it was back at the beginning of May for Jose Barrios. Where do you stand with this guy?
You think you're going to just sneak that in and move on? Who cares?
Yes,
they suck.
They don't deserve attention.
Okay. I'm not playing him. No interest. Like, I get it. He has been better. He looks like the version he was prior. Like, last year's version kind of seems like an anomaly at this point. No interest. $9,500 feels a little too pricey. Boston has a lefty riddled lineup and the one thing that Barrios has still struggled with this year is lefties. Like, he still hasn't shaken that part of his game away. Like lefties are still hitting him hard on the year. 165 ISO, 346 WOBA. Just I'm staying away. And Boston, 5 of their first 6 hitters are lefties. No thanks. Like no thanks. Honestly, who I'd rather play, Fensty, just in this tier, if we were talking about like these 9K priced pitchers, for a couple $100, Freddie Peralta, 9,700. You talk about someone who's struggling. Freddie Peralta fits that bill. He has struggled a lot, but he has a very high ceiling because of the strikeouts. We've seen 9 strikeouts in 2 of his last 4 starts. And he gets Pittsburgh, who has been a very subpar offense. And then Bobby Miller, who, I mean, guy has gotten shelled. 13 earned runs in his last 2 starts. Like me and you could have went up there and done some dink and dunks and done some damage against him. But like Kansas City is not Houston and not San Francisco. Kansas City is 28th in OPS and WOBA against right-handed pitching on the year, and their 8th highest strikeout rate in the league against right-handed pitching. You look at the 4 starts prior, Bobby Miller was cooking with something, cooking with gas. 20-plus fantasy points in 4 straight starts, 3 quality starts. We know the Dodgers' offense is elite backing him up. Those are 2 names that I'd rather get to around the Jose Barrios price tag that I just feel better about. And you look at ownership today, like, yeah, you can get to Brios if you wanted to be contrarian because a lot of people are getting to Freddie Peralta and there's a good amount of people getting to Bobby Miller too. So Brios, again, it's like the McClanahan versus Paxton argument. He's contrarian. So if you want to play it in a large field tournament, sure. I would just rather, I think, take a shot on the other 2 over Barrios today.
You were talking about those 4 games for Bobby Miller where he had 20 plus fantasy DFS points. But look at the matchups in those 2 of them here, the Braves and the Phillies.
Sure.
Like that's impressive.
Yes.
Going up against those 2 teams and being able to do what he did there. So right there for him at 8,900, decent value. And when you go lower than that now, if we go to the value tier sub 8K, and I know he's mentioned in Justin Vreeland's playbook, which again is on fantasyalarm.com. You can go check it out and read it along while you're watching with us here. Osvaldo Bido. I mean, that's another guy that he has here. And when you look at what he's done, 5+ strikeouts here in the 3 starts and hasn't allowed more than 3 earned runs in those starts.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely nice that we're getting the strikeouts because especially on DraftKings, when he's clearly allowing a lot of base runners, right? 7+ base runners in all 3 of his starts, which hurts on DraftKings because everything hurts on DraftKings. If you look at DraftKings wrong, they're going to give you negative points or just like take money away, right? Like FanDuel, like, come on over. You can allow bases loaded for 6 straight innings. And if you don't allow any runs, it doesn't matter, right? Like that's the difference between the 2 sites. So Bido being the guy that is missing bats is definitely nice. And I just talked about Milwaukee, despite I met Minnesota. Milwaukee is another team that can't hit and strikes out a lot against right-handed pitching. So, yeah, I mean, now the thing is, he doesn't have a lot of win equity because Pittsburgh has fallen off the face of the earth. And Freddie Peralta is opposing them and is a favorite despite being on the road. But if he can limit damage and we get the second Cub start, I am more than happy to plug and play 17 fantasy points and move on. And you know, Milwaukee's offense, again, is really, really bad at this stage. So I do like Osvaldo Bido. I get a little worried when you're allowing 7+ base runners every single night because, like, sometimes, especially in baseball, like you allow 9 hits to the Marlins and only 2 runs. That's pretty lucky over a 6-inning span. Like you're having good batted ball luck. So I get a little, cautious there, but he is missing bats. That is a nice thing to have in our back pocket. I do like Osvaldo Bido quite a bit.
We were talking about some of the totals before here, very high total, only a couple though in double figures, obviously the Coors Field game, but also this Braves Marlins game and Mike Soroka called back up here. So yeah. you can see why the total's so high. And with what Miami has been doing for the most part. I mean, they've been hitting the stuffing out of the ball. They just got Jazz Chisholm back. And to do what they've done, and I talked with Adam Ronis about this before, for them to do what they did without Chisholm in the lineup,
Right.
very impressive. How much more dangerous this lineup gets with him back, scary to me.
Yeah, I mean it's a good lineup, and they have just gotten a bunch of guys back, to be honest, not just Chisholm. They got Garrett Cooper back from injury. They got Jesus Sanchez back from injury. Like, they've added a lot of depth in the last like month or so, and we've seen it just be very fruitful for them. When you look at Soroka, who was a very good pitcher, got to see him at the major league level. It's all bad. Like, the surface level stats are bad. The peripheral stats are bad. There's not like much to love about Mike Soroka other than that he gets a lot of ground balls. If that's what we're like writing home about, then I'm scared for him because it is a good lineup. I have no interest in Soroka. The only thing I have interest in Soroka is using guys against him here. So not my cup of tea, and I don't really see a case to getting to Soroka either. It's not bad business right now, Fensty. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they could be a stack possibly on the other side then for Miami. That would be great.
I agree.
So let's any other pitchers you want to spotlight before we move on to the catcher position?
I would like to give a little love to Luis Severino, and I said it on the podcast with Colby Conway this morning that you can catch every day at 9 a.m. on Better Sports Network and Fantasy Alarm. Like, he's just not a $7,400 pitcher. I know he's been bad, but 6 scoreless innings against Texas is definitely something that can get you going. Because Luis Severino is an elite front-end talent when healthy. He just hasn't been very healthy. The rain is obviously just a little bit concerning. I have a little trepidation getting to Severino because of the rain. I'll just say this. There's a couple names that I will mention that are getting a lot of ownership. John Gray is the highest projected rostered pitcher of tonight. Houston scored 14 runs last night against a right-handed pitcher, and I know Adam Wainwright is not John Gray, or John Gray is not Adam Wainwright, but like, I don't love that. And Griffin Canning at 8,300 is another guy getting a lot of ownership. Maybe something to explore. I don't know if Houston or the Arizona lineup has come out officially yet, but if there's no Corbin Carroll, then maybe we get to Griffin Canning. But like, if Corbin Carroll is in the lineup, why the hell is the field playing Griffin Canning tonight? I'm a little interested in what the field is thinking there, Fensty, personally.
Yeah, I'm rushing to see if we have the lineups. You're right. The lineup is still not out from what I've seen so far. Kind of surprised me about Gray as well. I mean, why do you think people are flocking to him? I mean, I know he's had a good year, but you just mentioned some of the facts surrounding him and who he's matched up against. So to me, it's a little weird that everybody seems, as many people seem to be going after Gray, as you are saying.
I mean, like, overall, Houston hasn't been great as an offense, and they are missing Yordan Alvarez, but like, these numbers are pretty skewed. Like, they missed Jose Altuve for almost the entire season at this point. He's played 20 games. Yordan's missed the last 20 games. It's a little misleading, I think, to see where Houston is. Like, I don't think Houston is as good as they were last year. I think that's almost for a fact. I mean, they won the World Series, right? So, but I mean, it's a good price for Gray, who's been really good. He does have some strikeout upside, as we saw, 12 strikeouts against the Cardinals a few games ago. So I think, especially on DraftKings, you need guys that miss bats because you get dinged for so many other factors. You lose points for walks and hits and runs, and on FanDuel, you lose points for one of those things, right? Just runs. So because Gray has a double-digit strikeout game on his ledger and has, 69 strikeouts, nice in 81 innings, which is decent, there's some strikeout appeal. So I think a lot of people are just gravitating that way. And those people are obviously scared to get to someone like McClanahan and Paxton, who are both dealing with or coming off of some type of injury.
And when he matched up against the Astros last time, I'm seeing only last 2 innings, but as someone again doing the injury report, I faintly remembered that there was one start where I think he might have gotten hurt, taken
Yes.
out, but did not
Yes.
end up going to the injured list though. They kind of let him wait it out, and then he was fine for the next start. So he started 6 days later. I remember tracking that. So you can't even rely on the previous start that he had against the same team.
Yep, exactly.
All right, let's move on to the catcher spot here and talk about who we like up top. Here are some of the higher priced guys. And by the way, which I think you do a great job of, James, on Fantasy Alarm's Twitter handle at Fantasy Alarm, all week long, Mr. Grande over here puts together the graphic and you could give your home run predictions. And when you get your home run prediction correct, you get a little shout out. We make you famous here for the first time ever. I actually got mine right with Josh Young the other day. I was so pumped. And then I thought I was going to go back to back with Freddie Freeman. And that game ended up starting 2 hours later,
2 hours,
3 hours later than expected. He had an incredible night, no home run. So the reason I'm saying that is because I saw someone put out Jonah Heim before. It might have been Servo.
It was actually. Servo. Yep, it was Servo.
So he put out Jonah Heim for his home run prediction, and Heim is 4,600 in comparison to Will Smith, who is up there at 5,800 as your top price catcher on DraftKings tonight.
Yeah, I'm okay spending up at catcher. It's been like pretty fruitful to attack Ronel Blanco, the starter for the Houston Astros tonight. He has definitely been worse against righties, so that's not the case here. Heim's going to hit from the left side. I'm okay with it, Fensty. I'm okay getting to Smith. Truthfully, tonight, though, I'm totally interested in just spending down at catcher. Sometimes, like, I like Will Smith. I like the Dodgers quite a bit. They're my favorite stack of the night. You can get to Smith, but that means you're not paying up. You're probably spending down, punting a starting pitcher somewhere. But, like, Jake Rogers at 4K hitting in the middle of this Tigers lineup makes a lot of sense. 7 of his 10 home runs have come against lefties, and now he's in Coors. Again, like I said, I'm going to mention a lot of Tigers, although I mentioned I'm a little weary about the first night in Coors, but Rogers and his handlebar mustache has mashed left-handed pitching all year long. I really like that play at 4K. I really, as you go down the list, I'm okay attacking John Gray, and I love Yanier Diaz against right-handed pitching. He has hit right-handers so hard. He actually leads them in pretty much every statistical category from the right side. 271 ISO leads the team. 365 WOBA is only second to Jose Altuve, and there's less of a sample for Altuve, so, naturally could be inflated a little bit more. Coming off a 3-hit game yesterday, hitting 311 in his last 10. I just kind of have gravitated to this spend down catcher spot today. Chad Wallach is another guy who hits lefties extremely well. I know he's struggling mightily, but he has hit lefties really, really hard this year. So, I'm okay getting to these guys up here. But
what about someone like a Patrick Bailey, who he's not really getting you? He's not getting you though, Grande. And this is the one frustrating thing with Patrick Bailey, because he's riding a 7-game hit streak, but he's not really getting you anything in the power department.
Yeah,
he's not putting up the RBIs. So can we still ride that out at 3,700 and end up with a decent night with the expectation that this guy gets a hit, maybe 2?
I'm okay with it. Carrasco's been worse against the righty split. He's been pretty good against lefties this year, which is weird to say for reverse splits. It's just a reverse splits pitcher. It happens sometimes. He's okay. Like you said, it doesn't feel like there's a ton of upside with Patrick Bailey,
because he's hitting the ball. He's just not hitting in runs.
Yeah, so I'm okay. I'm okay getting there. I don't think it's something that I'm actively seeking out.
Moving on to the first base position here. Top priced is first base outfield eligible Shohei Ohtani. And for Shohei Ohtani, which, by the way, all the debates on, the average sports fan, do they know who Ohtani is? everybody know who this guy is at this point. With what he does on the mound, what he does at the plate, what he does when he's on the mound, at the plate in the same game. This guy's absolutely incredible, man. He's scorching. And I was looking at some of his splits at the plate earlier, too, being with the matchup against Henry, who is the lefty. And still, he's hitting fine against both righties and lefties. So it's not like it matters. He's a universal option.
Yeah, he's a unicorn. He's not a universal option. I had this debate with my dad yesterday, and it's probably for a different time, but I don't feel prisoner of the moment saying that he is like the greatest baseball player that's ever played, just given what he's doing at the same time. Babe Ruth did it in a different era with players that should have been in Major League Baseball that weren't. He didn't pitch and hit at the same time. Shohei Ohtani's doing both at an incredibly high level, right? So he has a 320 ISO and a 405 WOBA against left-handed pitching. Those numbers are like the best on his team, and he's a lefty. So like, don't really care if it's a righty or lefty. If the guy throws from the middle of his forehead, like Shohei Ohtani is going to hit a home run more often than he isn't at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he's gone deep in 3 of his last 4 games. I mean, it's incredible what we continue to see from him.
4 times over that span. 4 times over that span, too.
Right.
Like 4 home runs over. Yeah.
He had double dong a couple of games ago. That's right.
Yep.
And it's just been, you're seeing what he's doing in June still, and he just continues to smash a lot of games where he's had multiple RBIs as well. And even though, I mean, we talk about good chalk and bad chalk, it's almost like it can never be bad chalk with this guy at this point. You just use him.
What is the downside to playing him at this point? Like, I know, obviously he's the most expensive player on the slate. So I think him and Acuna, he's $100 off Acuna. So, like, yeah, if he goes 0 for, sure, that's going to hurt. But, like, that's what you're paying for. He just double donged. He had 32 fantasy points the other night. Like, he has he has multi-stolen base upside. The guy has no flaws. He has 0 flaws. At this point, it's like Shohei versus the field. And obviously, baseball is hard to like be this good at for sustained period of time. But look at June. Just look through his June numbers. He has been this good for a sustained period of time. So 0, and I mean 0 issue if you want to find dollars to get to Shohei Ohtani.
Last time he didn't hit the ball 9 days ago. 9 days.
I mean, dude, it's just like that's what I'm saying. Like, that's as surefire as it gets when it comes to baseball players. The best baseball players ever are good 3 out of 10 times, right? He hasn't been bad in 9 days. Like, I mean, what more needs to be said?
For sure. So let's actually talk about Toronto now. Let's go down a little bit when the price point for first baseman. And some of the things I was looking up before with the splits, the Blue Jays actually hit 264 against lefties. And the Angels are right around there too. But I feel like, Grande, we need a little love from the squad tonight. And I'm trying to figure out whether Vladdy Jr. is someone that we go after, maybe a few of the cheaper options. But that's definitely someone I want to sink my teeth into. Again, this team very solid against lefties.
Yeah, I mean, they'll be under-owned. No one's going to play him. Toronto is very expensive typically, and that's just kind of leads people to not playing them. And they kind of disappointed last night, other than Vladdy, who hit a late home run and put them over the top in a 2-run game against a guy that was $4,000, Keaton Winn. So, yeah, I mean, if you want to be contrarian, nobody's going to play the Blue Jays today. And James Paxton, for how good he is at missing bats, he is susceptible to home runs. That is the one thing he has allowed this year. So if you want to play a couple Blue Jays, even if you wanted to just play Vladdy as a one-off, I'm perfectly fine with that because it's a good spot for him.
I'm glad you mentioned that because here's a little tease a little bit later on when we talk in the next few minutes when we move on to the outfield. I got another player who I really like who's done well against Mr. Paxton in the past. But for now, I digress. We go back to first base as we go down the price points here. Is there anybody else that stands out to you that you like tonight, even in that late 4K range?
Yeah, Brandon Drury, who you can use in multiple positions, I like. He's been really good against lefties in the past few seasons. And I know Tommy Henry's been pitching well, but I don't think that's going to sustain here against the Angels, who are clicking on all cylinders. I like CJ Cron in Coors Field against righties. Rockies never get any love despite playing their home games at Coors. Like they're just going to fall by the wayside again. Michael Lorenzen has struggled with righties this year. 328 WOBA allowed. CJ Cron 190 ISO against right-handed pitching, and that's kind of been the MO for him the last 2 seasons. He's hit righties better than he's hit lefties. So I'd go to CJ Crone, Nathaniel Lowe, and don't say Nate because he changed it to Nathaniel. How dare you ever disrespect him?
My bad. I've only said Nate Lowe.
Yeah, he changed it mid-season last year, just like out of the clouds, and he was just like, I go by Nathaniel now.
Wow, I didn't realize that. I know he changed it. I didn't realize. I thought Nate was still acceptable.
No. Well, he might be. That's just me. But like, you don't just randomly change your name if you want to be called Nate again, right? Like, you wouldn't just go from like Just to Justin, and then people are like, "Hey, Just," you're like, "Bro, did you see that I added the last few letters? Come on."
Who are you, Seal? What name? Come on.
True. Spencer Torkelson.
I was just about to ask you about him because you wanted to talk Tigers, and the guy's hit 3 home runs in his last 2 games, and he's in Coors Field. So, what do you think the ownership percentage on him is going to be? 99.999%.
I mean, given it's a bigger slate, I think that it'll be semi-depressed, like more than it would be if it was like a 6 or 7 game slate. It's just, buyers beware, right? Like, he hasn't been great except for these last few games. So what stock what do you put into it? Do you put in recent performance as your like one of your tipping points? Do you put in like large sample, which has obviously been bad, 223 sub 700 OPS? Like, this is a guy that was expected to hit for power. He has not until the last 2 games. He has hit for power. So, I think there's obviously a case for him. He's one of the highest projected first basemen of the day. If you're playing multiple lineups and you're playing Tigers, you want Spencer Torkelson in because he has some of the most upside on the team, as we just saw 36 fantasy points just yesterday. So I'm okay getting Torkelson. I'm not like I'll put it this way. I have other Tigers I like more than Spencer Torkelson.
Ooh, we'll have to find out which they are at this point here. Before we move on to second base, any other value first base that you like? By the way, again, you can see in Justin Vreeland's playbook piece that he has on the site there. He gives you a bunch of tiers. If you're just joining us for the first time, you get your top price guys, but he'll also give you a few values as well, which is huge.
Yeah, I'll throw out a couple. We'll just rattle off a couple names since we got to move on. But Garrett Cooper against Soroka, a lot of power in his bat. Andrew Vaughn is a guy getting a lot of ownership tonight. I'm okay getting there. Luis Medina's been bad against right-handed bats. He faces the White Sox here, who have a lot of right-handed bats. Those 2 guys for me really stand out down here in the Valley tier, but that's it.
I was trying to see what Jose Abreu had done lifetime here against Gray, but there's not a big enough sample size. He's only had a few at-bats against him.
He's been good in general.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, he's sitting here at 3,300, and he's had multiple RBIs in 3 of his last 4 games, homered in 2 of his last 4 games here. So the problem is, when you look at the BVP, the sample size is just too small for him, but the price point, nice and cheap, though, still.
Yeah, and he hits in the middle of the Houston lineup. I don't hate it. I'm not like fully enamored with Houston tonight because I do think it's a weird spot. I don't love using John Gray. I'm also just okay not like stacking against him either, right? Because like he is pretty good, and Jose Abreu has been good. He's a good price point, so I'm okay if you end up on Jose Abreu at $3,300.
Moving on to second base, top price second baseman is actually the player that I predicted to hit a home run tonight from this Rangers squad, who I love, by the way, man. I love how powerful this lineup is. Marcus Semien going up here against Houston at 5,900 tonight here. I mean, you got other guys as well around him, like Ozzy Albies at 56, Marte at 54, but my eyes are on Semien, man. I'm invested. I put it on paper there. I put it in the Digi world. So because of that, I'm going to paying up for him tonight.
I mean, it's hard to keep your eye. Look at this jawline, Look at that Semien jawline. Hard to keep your eyes off him there, Fensty. But, I mean, he hits righties extremely well. 195 ISO, 346 WOBA. And I mentioned Ronel Blanco, 212 ISO allowed, 386 WOBA allowed to righties. Like perfect matchup made in heaven for Marcus Semien. He was the cover of our show today too. He was not only your home run call, cover of the show. So I love Semien, and I think like of the top tier, mostly the only guy I'm getting to, Luis Arise and Drury would probably be the next two names, but like above 5K, it's basically Semien and then move on down.
Any nice value plays you like tonight at the position?
Yeah, I mean, I know we touted Dean Kramer, but I do like Edouard Julien, who is a little powerful dude. One of their top prospects was called up, then sent down because the Jorge Polanco return, and then Jorge Polanco got hurt again. So then Julien returned back. He got the call back up. He's powerful, hits righties for a lot of power. So I like him. And here's one of the other Detroit players I like. I love Andy Ibanez. And I know these stats don't look great. Right before this, he was rolling. All the power he's flashed was right before this recent like little downturn that he's taken. But he has been pretty good for Detroit this year. He's been especially good against lefties, Fancy. 341 ISO. That's ridiculous. That's elite. And 351 WOBA is really, really solid. And he's hitting third tonight. Like he's hitting third. He has multi-position eligibility. So I love Ibanez here. And honestly, I can mention Zach Short at third, but I'll just mention him here just to group him in. He only hits lefties. So if you wanted to pivot off of Ibanez and, play something a little smaller. Oh, you didn't get it. Oh, damn. Okay. Anyways, play something a little smaller.
I thought you were telling me about pivot, like pivot.
Play something. He has 200 ISO and a 371 WOBA against left-handed pitching. So I think both Tigers value second baseman make a lot of sense here.
Third base, top priced guys: Austin Riley at 5,500, Nolan Arenado sits at 5,300, Rafael Devers, who is a home run prediction here that we had on our graphic at Fantasy Alarm as well. We were talking about Barrios before and whether or not we can trust Barrios, which we're not tonight. I mean, Devers at 5,100 looks pretty good there. He hit a home run a couple of games ago, and tonight here, interesting spot for him.
Yeah, some of the best home run odds on the board today. He's like a handful of players that had sub plus 300 odds over on DraftKings Sportsbook. Shout out to them for providing the odds every day. 236 ISO against right-handed pitching. Love the spot, really. And again, Barrios specifically struggles against lefties, and the Red Sox have no shortage of lefties. Their top 4 hitters are lefties. Number 6 is a lefty. Number 8's a lefty. He's facing 7 tonight. So good luck, or 6 rather. So good luck there. Same thing can be said for Max Muncy, who also had some of the best home run odds, is also very powerful, and really all he does is hit home runs or drive in runs, or strike out. There's 3 things that Max Muncy's really good at. So of this top tier, I like Muncy, Devers. I also have a little love for Riley. Our boy Pee Wee gave him some rub here in the home run call. Said Riley's going to be his home run. Riley's going to go yard tonight. Brian Hoeing, not a big sample, has been getting a little lucky. So I think the Braves could be a little sneaky, and that would include Austin Riley in your stack.
From the value tier, when you're looking down, we now move down in the third base tier. I'm looking to see when it comes to Justin Vreeland, who he was looking at tonight. And one of the players that he put in that third base tier, and you're seeing that right there, is Brett Beatty he put there, actually.
Well, that's because he loves the Mets.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, dude, there's been a large sample, and Beatty has terrible batted ball luck. It's been that way the entire year. All of his expected numbers are significantly higher than his seasonal numbers. So I think things are going to start turning around for him. We saw the numbers at AAA beforehand. Like, he just hits righty, lefty. He just hits. So
he's hit in 4 of his last 5 games too.
Yeah. And we saw the power yesterday. So I'm perfectly fine getting to Beatty. The Mets are more one-offs to me than anything, but I definitely would one-off Brett Beatty for sure.
Moving on to shortstop, and this is where I was thinking about for the home run prediction before which Ranger I was going to go with, and Corey Seager was someone that I was thinking about, but then I ended up pivoting to Marcus Semien. But I mean, Corey Seager for the year that he's having 345, man. I mean, this guy
Yeah,
has
it's
just
ridiculous.
been good. And he's in double figures when it comes to home runs as well. RBIs in 3 of his last 4 games, hits in like 5 of his last 6. This guy's scorching right now, and he's 6K because of it.
Yeah, and he's probably, if Shohei Ohtani didn't exist, he'd be the clubhouse leader for MVP. But it doesn't matter, right? Like it doesn't matter. Yeah, he's been great. Even when he's not hitting home runs, he has back-to-back games with doubles and RBIs. Like he has 22 doubles on the year. He drives in a lot of runs. He doesn't strike out. He scores a lot of runs because their offense is elite. Um, I have nothing bad to say, and the matchup is really good against Ronald Blanco. Despite Ronald Blanco being worse against righties, he's still bad against lefties too. So perfectly fine getting to Texas. It's costly. Texas is expensive. Like if you wanted to play Semien and Seager, Semien costs you 59 and Seager costs you 6K. So like a lot of times you might choose between one of them. I lean Semien tonight, but I'm perfectly fine if you wanted to pivot to Seager.
What about when you look down in the price point? Well, let me ask you this: you go down a little bit. Where are you at with someone like a Gunnar Henderson? Because here's the thing with Gunnar Henderson. I mean, we know. I mean, when it comes to the matchup, the one thing I worry about with him is the strikeouts over his last few
Yes.
games. He struck out quite a few times, and that's something that worries me heading into tonight with him in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, he just strikes out a lot in general, which is, I think, a little bit concerning when it comes to Pablo Lopez. Like, Gunnar Henderson against right handed pitching has really good numbers 291 ISO, 383 Woba. He has a 30% strikeout rate against righties as well. So, like, you nailed it. It's really like if he gets into one, he's going to do damage. And if he faces Pablo Lopez's best stuff, he's going to strike out 3 times in this game. So, um, I'm fine getting to Gunner. He's definitely profiles best in tournaments because I do hold Pablo Lopez in pretty high regard. Lefties have gotten to him though. I will say that. Like lefties have been the ones to give Pablo Lopez issues. So if there was anyone in Baltimore I'd use, it's the left side and their first 4 hitters and then Gunnar Henderson. So 5 of their top 6 all are hitting from the left side tonight. So I definitely have some
Someone
interest.
who's been hitting very well, by the way, and we go back to that Coors Field matchup between the Tigers and the Rockies. Ezekiel Tovar has been very solid,
Yeah.
man. I mean, you look at the
Yeah.
last time he hasn't gotten a hit, and I'm scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. It was literally almost 3 weeks ago. He's almost on
Yeah.
a
12 game
3 week
hit
hit
streak.
streak.
Yeah. 12 game hit streak currently. Yeah.
But here's the problem with that, James. Another guy, I mean, I guess he's more with the RBIs than someone like a Patrick Bailey, who we were discussing earlier. But do you look at something like the home run and the RBIs? Does that, I mean, he's 3,800, so it's a little bit cheaper. But are we justified to still play him because he's been smashing lately, despite not really hitting home runs consistently and not really hitting those RBIs consistently?
I will say the difference is he has at least given us a little higher upside. I mean, double-digit fantasy points in 3 of the last 4 games is pretty solid, including 2 nearly 20 fantasy point games. Um, and it's in cores. Like Patrick Bailey doesn't have that
Right.
buff. Like at the end of the day, Tovar has the buff. He's hitting second. Michael Lorenzen, Detroit starter, has been significantly worse against the right-handed split. Right, like that's been where his struggles have been. Righties against Michael Lorenzen this year have a 328 Woba. So like, I'm perfectly fine getting to Tovar. Now I'm a little ticked off that they moved him to 7th because he's been so good, and I don't understand why they moved him down. Like he's been hitting second, and I know to make room for Chris Bryant, but like, what has Chris Bryant done to just automatically get plugged into? Like you're moving a guy on a 12 game hit streak back to 7th. Like it's a little annoying. So I like Tovar here. If the only other like value play I would have consideration is, and this is if Kevin Roth deems it okay to play, pretty much, is if the Yankees Cardinals game gets better, I want to play Anthony Volpe. And he has been really, really good since he made his stance switch. You see it 367 over his last 10 games. It's like 450 over his last 6 games because he has 3 straight multi-hit games. And Anthony Volpe is someone who is going to get on and steal too. Like he is a fast mother effer. I don't know what else to say. Like he's a fast dude. So between like if you're scared of going Tovar, I think maybe the upside that he lacks sometimes could be in Volpe's speed, right? Because he is also a guy who hit for power at the minor league level. So if you don't want to play Tovar and Cora's, perfectly fine pivoting to Volpe if that game ends up being okay to play.
Final position, outfield. And I can't wait to tell you because the guy here, and we're going to go a little out of order instead of just looking at the high price guys. Can I sell you on George Springer, who's hit 3 home runs against James Paxton?
Okay. You BVP truthers, man. I have to deal with Colby the last week, and now I have to deal with you. Ugh. No, I'm okay with it. I'm not a BVP guy, truth be told. Because I think BVP can be a little misleading, just given like we judge baseball players on like large samples of data. And then BVP could be like 11 at bats, and you don't know how a pitcher, what was going on in 11 at bat sample, and whether the pitcher was dealing with an injury or whatever. I think large quantities of data is better to go off of. And that's why I am not like totally sold on BVP. But why I like George Springer is that he has a long track record of hitting lefty pitching very well. He has hit them for a lot of power throughout his career. And I mentioned it when we were talking about Vladdy. I mean, James Paxton has allowed a 164 ISO to right-handed bats. He's allowing power to right-handed bats. So I am perfectly fine getting the Springer. Not necessarily because the BVP, and maybe the BVP plays today. I mean, Colby mentioned Victor Caratini's name last night off Max Scherzer, and then Victor Caratini hit a home run, and you're like, okay, like what? You have this one, you win, right? Sometimes the data's there. I just like in baseball, when it comes to baseball, I just am more large sample size than I am smaller.
No, and I understand that. Absolutely. It just definitely stood out to me a little bit today. Yeah. But no, look, if you're not a BVP guy, you're not a BVP guy. And what you said wasn't wrong about how it could be a little bit misleading. Right. So I agree with you on that part. Was interesting, though, seeing him hit a few home runs, though, against Paxton, though.
Sure.
From the higher price outfielders, who are you prioritizing tonight?
So I'm getting to Dodgers. So I love Mookie Betts, JD Martinez. They've hit right-handed pitching extremely well. And this kid Alec Marsh, was really bad between Double and Triple A this year. Casey Summers, good place to hit. I think the Dodgers are going to keep on rolling. So those are my top 2. Love Jazz Chisholm. I know he was the cover of the Playbook and of MLB The Show this year. He has looked awesome since coming back. I mean, he's looked really good in the power department against right-handed pitching specifically all year. But 2 home runs and 5 RBIs over his first 3 games back. Like, it's really hard to ignore. They were just like, hey, Jazz, hit 4th. And he's like, all right, dudes, watch me go, right? And, like, he also has the speed element to his game, too. So the Dodgers and Jazz would probably be my upper echelon. And, like, Acuna, Ohtani, Trout, like, you can't go wrong with those guys, obviously. Like, that's not me, like, just excluding them. Can't go wrong with Adolis Garcia, who I think is very live to hit a home run tonight.
Yeah, because he has it 3 of his last 4
right.
games.
Yeah, very live to always hit a home run. But, like, preference, I love Mookie Betts, JD Martinez, and Jazz Chisholm tonight.
How about another Yankee here? And this is someone that I was looking up before because I noticed this last week. And, I mean, known, I guess, more for his defense, but could bring some offense here. What about Harrison Bader? Because we're about to set a lineup together. We've talked about a lot of high-priced players. We're going to need to counterbalance that a little bit. What about someone like Bader tonight? I mean, I know that the weather concerns you, but still nice and cheap. And the Yankees are providing us some decent value.
Yeah, I mean, look, I want to play Yankees. Like, and again, I'm putting my bias aside. I think this is a good spot, like unequivocally good spot. The Yankees offense has obviously come alive the last two nights. They've scored 21 runs with the perfect game and post perfect game, right? So like again, like kind of a Kickstarter almost. And Harrison Bader hitting fourth tonight for the Yankees has been pretty good over this last stretch of games. And Matthew Liberatore has been really bad against righties. 174 ISO allowed, 391 WOBA. So I love the price for Bader. I love the lineup spot for Bader. I'm currently looking at Kevin Roth's weather report or Twitter account to see if I can get anything positive coming from that front because, yeah, I want him. For more, I would play Giancarlo Stanton, by the way, just throwing that out there. I know he's like significantly more expensive, but I would play Stanton if you are playing Yankees. And Fensty, good news. Kevin Roth had that game listed orange. There is now yellow involved too. So maybe the pitcher's a little scary to use. But he, quote, I'm cautiously optimistic. So I am now getting excited again about using Yankees here. So I do like Harrison Bader quite a bit.
So let's get even more excited by setting a winning lineup together very quickly. We've talked about a lot of players over the last hour here. So when it comes to pitching, we'll start here with the two pitchers. I mean, which of the top guys you want to go in on tonight? I mean, you want to go McClanahan and then maybe go all the way down to maybe a Bobby Miller?
So I think Bobby Miller is a definite. I want to use Bobby Miller. Like I'm sold on Bobby Miller in the spot. I don't know if we want to use McClanahan. Like, how do you feel about that? Because like 11K is a lot, dude, and he is coming off a back injury, and that's a little scary.
I mean, where I look if I'm not going to use him, and this is going to be gross, I'm looking at that Pittsburgh-Milwaukee matchup next to see maybe we were talking about Beto before. See if you can cash in on the strikeouts. You're in on him. Okay.
I'm in it.
7,800 for Oswaldo Beto.
So do you want to play Bader? Is that a value play that you wanted to get in? Let's play Bader because I think that's going to provide us some good.
What about Mr. Tovar as well, who we were talking about before?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So we got Tovar. So Tovar goes into our shortstop spot. Bader goes into one of our outfield spots. Going a little out of order here, but Marcus Semien, your thoughts on him? You want to just go with him tonight?
I do.
All right.
I do.
5,900 Marcus Semien goes into our second base spot.
I want to get Andy Ibanez into the lineup tonight. 3K, get some more Coors exposure, and it provides us a pretty penny, $4,200 for the rest of our positions. So I think if any Detroit member, I want to get Ibanez in the lineup.
Any of the Miami players before, because we were just talking about, I mean, we got to attack Soroka somehow here. So any Miami players that stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, we could elect to do a mini stack or we could play one-offs. Like Cooper, we could do a Cooper Chisholm mini stack, and that would be pretty good because they're hitting right next to each other in the lineup, and Cooper's cheap and Jazz isn't. So we could do, I don't know how you felt about Garrett Cooper at first base, but like 3,400 is a really good price for a dude that has a ton of power. I mean, he's coming off a game in which he homered. He has back-to-back 15-plus DraftKings point games. I don't know how you feel about Garrett Cooper.
He's been hitting a lot lately, so he's on a streak, so I'm totally fine with that. And that leaves us, by the way, with 8,400 for our third baseman and catcher.
And likely, I mean, Fensty, we probably spend down here at catcher and then give us the money to get whoever we want at third base.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
What I mean, do you want to play your boy Patrick Bailey or do you want to play Yanyer
I was going to
Diaz?
say your boy. We could go your boy Diaz if you want. So what boy?
All right, let's see what we could do. All right, so with Yanyer, we can get Devers.
Okay.
And then we'll be able to get like Ryan McMahon as we are like 45 seconds left. So do you want to play Yanyer Devers?
I'm fine with that.
That feels pretty good.
Yep. And that puts us down to 0. So just like that, look at this. As you see, Bobby Miller, Oswaldo Beto for our pitchers. Then you got Yanyer Diaz, Garrett Cooper, Marcus Semien, Rafael Devers, Ezekiel Tovar, and then in our outfield, Harrison Bader, and Ibanez, Jazz Chisholm. And that lineup is going to win us our Chipotle for the weekend.
Let's go. I love hearing Chipotle being named.
Well, James, it's been great hanging out with you, previewing tonight's 12-game slate here coming up here on Better Sports Network. You'll get the Fantasy Baseball podcast